Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to yet another podcast edition of Retail Media Lounge. Today we have got Prateek Rai, who comes from ex Tata 1MG and now leading the category at TrueMeds, a brand that I'm pretty sure many of us here have used at some point of time. At least personally, I've ordered from 1MG more times than I like to admit, Prateek. Usually after Googling symptoms and convincing myself that I need half the pharmacy. So Prateek has been a part of Tata 1MG journey for several years now, working across partnerships, monetization, and helping scale one of India's most trusted digital healthcare platform. Prateek, I think you've spent years working at the intersection of commerce, healthcare, digital growth, and what makes your perspective particularly interesting is that you have helped build retail media programs inside a very different kind of marketplace, which is healthcare. And first at Tata 1MG, and now very glad to see you at TrueMeds as well. So, in my opinion, having worked in a similar industry over the years, Prateek, I feel healthcare is a very different commerce environment because even in my current role, I do tend to interact with a lot of industries, right, from fashion, beauty, food tech, marketplaces, others, etc. But specifically in the healthcare segment, users come with a lot of urgency. They ask you for a lot of trust and often very specific intent. Right. So, and I've always believed that monetization here requires like a very careful balance between business and user trust. But I'm very, very excited that retail media in healthcare has evolved from early experimentation that you did at Tata 1MG to something that can actually behave like a repeatable revenue line. So thank you for being here. Very excited to learn more on how it truly unfolded at Tata 1MG, and over the course of time, see what have been your learnings in growing the retail media network out there.
Thanks, Anuj. I think the pleasure is equally mine. And what is the most exciting part of this podcast is we started both of us in a similar fashion. You from Swiggy, me from Zomato, and we scaled along to you stayed with Swiggy for 10 long years almost, and then came to Osmos, and before that also you had some ventures, etc. So your experience, your richness of experience, and my understanding of this digital space almost came from a similar background. And now, while the healthcare played out over the last 10 years for me, I've learned this because you were speaking on the understanding that what's the healthcare differential in the retail media environment. I think what you stressed upon is very right, that there's a lot of trust because users generally come with an understanding that they are looking for a specific medicine or healthcare product, and there's urgency, there's understanding in that. So monetization revolves around that trust. It does not disrupt that trust, right? And there is a lot of regulatory engagement also built around this healthcare environment. So it's not as simple as a fashion. How would you we would like to understand that I can advertise anything and everything. I have to make a perfect balance of the relevance with the customer alongside the regulatory discipline, and then we have to be very subtle. We cannot indulge the consumer to a point that it rather than assisting discovery, it has an interruption in the healthcare journey that they wish to achieve with the healthcare platforms. So with these three fundamentals and principles, when they are there, the monetization becomes much more sustainable, and that's the line that we see in healthcare, which is differential from the rest of the industries per se.
Yeah. Yeah, I think talking about sustainability, I think who else than you knows that really well, having scaled. Tata 1mg is a very trustable format. Growing the retail media of a trusted format, I think, is something you've gained experience with. So we'll be delighted to know a lot more in terms of how it actually evolved. So if I actually rewind a few years, because I started my journey in 2015 at Swiggy, and if I rewind a few years there, healthcare retail media was very experimental in nature, a lot more fragmented, a lot more opportunistic, and often secondary to core commerce priorities. Right, very different. If you look at the likes of Mintras and Swiggy's and Zomatos of the world in India. Today, it's increasingly discussed as a very strategic business line, right? Right from Tata 1mg to all the other health tech platforms that you see. From your vantage point, Prateek, how has healthcare retail media monetization evolved? Not just in ad formats, but the way organization seriousness, brand expectations, and internal accountability.
Uh, Anuj, as you rightly pointed out, so few years back, if we see the early journey when retail media first started in Tata 1mg, I think 2015-16, there was a lot of momentum around opportunity that the brand wanted to gain just by being present, right? There was a D2C wave around 2017 to 2018. A lot of new brands were coming up, etc. So in healthcare, particularly, what you saw is that moment that brands were there and they wanted to advertise uh, as a healthcare platform and as a platform which was having a healthcare medical background. The relevance of audience seemed or the overall platform's relevance seemed higher, and that's why as an opportunity matching, it so happened that most of the engagements started to happen. Largely it was as an opportunity to service, right, which we did back then. But as the evolution grew, the understanding of monetization, retail media, overall business presence of this engine became much more significant as a and it started mirroring the Western ethology, wherein it's a stable revenue line with a lot more impact and has a direct connection to how a platform's health in the terms of revenue, business, etc. is, right? And it gets tracked a lot more closely now, right? So that's the engagement or evolution that we have seen, and it's more repeatable, predictable understanding that we are seeing right now with this retail media in healthcare.
Very interesting. I think while in early days, I'm sure the programs, also the entire tech platform, be it the demand side or be it the configuration and ad side, would have also been very manual to say the least. Because back in days, I'm sure you would have seen where they usually start with like a quick message from the brand or a quick WhatsApp. If I were to say that, hey, can you run this for us? Be it a display asset or a PLA asset, which eventually translate to that WhatsApp message going into an ad ops team with manual placements, going back to the brand with Excel reporting, and it's like a heroic effort. But with your experience at Tata 1mg, Prateek, how do you reflect on the early stage of healthcare retail media? What did it actually look like inside the organization on a day-to-day basis? Would love to know post that on how it has evolved as well. But quickly reflect on what was it like back in 2015.
Yeah, so early days used to be quite chaotic because you have to actually figure out with each campaign how to get it done, what's in it. It was not that the retail media ecosystem in India as such was developed, right? We are speaking of more than a decade back, right? So how did it get developed? What was the understanding? Um, so with each campaign, you had to figure out the account managers would you. So yes, it happened, and it happens so today as well that there can be some WhatsApp messages that can move around and can create campaigns around the digital. But the early days, as I said, were quite chaotic with a lot of opportunistic engagement that was there, right? A brand would reach out, okay, can we promote a product? Can we gain some sale? Can we build some business? But the reporting, the everything end to end has to be manually orchestrated, right? And it so happens that uh, a single person is coordinating with the 8, 9 teams as a parallel and getting a campaign, individual campaign executed, right? So that doesn't make it scalable, right? But that individual engagement has a lot of learnings that come around with it, right? So that stage is very valuable because it teaches you specifically where visibility actually drives conversion, what happens, and how to place the retail media assets such in such a fashion that it drives conversion, makes healthcare monetization much more subtle and aiding to the commerce journey of the user rather than irritation or interruption, right? So all those individual things uh, started to form the fundamental blocks of what you see as a retail media industry in healthcare today. That's what I would say in perspective.
Well, I think extremely wise point, Prateek. The moment you say that if some of your retail media assets start becoming, an aid to conversion on the platform, if they start acting as catalyst on user conversions, I think then it becomes a win-win for the brand, a win-win for the user, and win-win for the retailer as well. Largely, we have seen that while a lot of retailers want to pursue their monetization in that direction, but eventually it becomes at times a retailer friendly monetization, but or an advertiser. But the moment you make a user friendly monetization is when I truly believe that it becomes a win-win for everyone there.
Yeah.
But all of these were probably early days of monetization at 1mg. But there's a moment in every scale up journey where volume reveals structural weaknesses. So as you scale, different kind of complexities that come in, right from the advertiser expectations to internal teams to leaders, etc. Not because maybe the effort to scale is lacking, but because effort does not scale fundamentally. In healthcare retail media, having seen it all, where do you think the first real strain showed up as growth accelerated, both on display as well as PLA and a lot of other efforts, a lot of other formats as well?
So I think there are 3 points. The first is and the most impactful is the coordination. When, as I said, when an account manager is having 2 or 3 campaigns, he can juggle between 8, 9 different teams, make the campaign work and a success. But what happens is when this scales up, there is a lot of engagement pressure with each brand, which you cannot deliver manually, right? So that becomes a challenge. The coordination becomes a challenge. Then becomes the measurement, right? Across different silo assessments, you cannot really stitch what has been the most fundamental impact on the business of a particular asset, of a particular media inventory, etc. Right? So that ecosystem silos do not really reflect into the measurement, and that's where there is a gap that exists. And third is with respect to the inventory management. So what inventories to assign to X or Y or Z, right? So without systems, these become unstable. They cannot You cannot be scheduled, you cannot place. So if at the start of the month you have multiple campaigns to run, you start figuring out juggling between all the campaigns, taking them live at once. Towards the mid, you feel like your optimization is required, then you again have to manually intervene. By that time you have lost 15 odd good days, in the most precious days of the commerce journey, right? So around half the month is gone, half the period of the momentary um monetization is gone, right? So and that cannot be taken back. So that inventory management, measurement, and coordination are the three factors which I believe are truly at risk when things start scaling. And this is not just healthcare; it should be across the retail media per se.
Yeah. No, I think very rightly said on reporting slash measurement. By the way, from the complexities that you just mentioned on AdOps, Osmos is now building a very thorough and a complete agentic model where a bunch of these campaigns which are probably performing poorly or not up to the mark as per the brand expectations. A lot of these will be done by the platform itself, where an ad ops person or an ad sales person can quickly ask Sophie, the AI agent of Osmos, about what's wrong with my campaign. Sophie would actually try fixing it on your behalf and eventually improve the performance over time. So that's already happening, and we see a lot of goodness coming out there. And the good part is with AI becoming taking center seat, a lot of evolved brands versus a lot of catching up brands will now be at par because AI would start bringing all of them a similar experience or a similar optimization levers. Up till today, maybe a lot of matured brands had an edge because they had better optimization techniques, better resources, etc., and hence they were able to derive a lot better outcome from the retail media network. But with AI coming in, I'm sure some of these will become a more even state for most brands. But now coming back to your 1MG journey for a moment, that retail media, was already happening there. Brands were running campaigns, inventory was being monetized, and tools like GAM were supporting placements and reporting. But of course, as scale increases, business started increasing and expectations from brands around targeting, reporting, performance also evolved. And I'm sure at Zomato also you have seen over the years that has evolved. And across Swiggy also, I moved from like a fixed placement to an auction-based placement to new to brand targeting, etc., etc. But now when you look back, Prateek, what were the key shifts that helped move the program from those early setups into a very structured and a more scalable retail media operation? And in that context, how did the decision to bring in a system like Osmos come about?
I tell you, it's more of a supply demand engagement always, right? You as brands evolve, right? They also seek more engagement, more clustering, filter the audience segmentation. Um, we are moving to a cookie-less world, and there's so much of AI that you mentioned, like Sophie, that will behave as an agentic agent, right? Solve for various problems. But back then also, between say a 2015 to a 2020, the evolution of brands working alongside platforms like us also evolved, and they also started having those understandings that how can we derive better revenue, how can we derive better user engagement from our placements, right? And we saw that while GAM and other channels, whatever we are doing, were were serving the right cause at that point of time for us. The manual engagements were heavy. There was multiple layers of intervention required, etc. Inventory management was slightly inconsistent. So all those factors, what we realized was that once Osmos comes into picture, right, and on top of that, the as I said, the demand, supply demand. So the brands ask of such a requirement. So we placed our understanding on Osmos in the early days. So that these functionalities, the governance, the inventory management, the operational management, and the audience targeting features could be better advanced with a much more higher account management leverage from both the sides. So Osmos also provided us with the account management, and the regular inputs also helped us in the understanding of retail media, how to be uh, presented back to the clients and advertisers and agencies, and they in turn appreciated the value, and that's how it scaled and evolved.
Got it. I think reporting has always been a slightly less talked about. Reporting along with audience targeting has always been a very less talked about feature in a lot of my personal discussions as well. Can you just walk me through, because it is a regulated environment as well, how did targeting, specifically on display side of things, how did it actually span out for you, and what was being appreciated by the brands?
So I'll tell you what happens is in the early days, you can always target a specific category, certain SKUs, etc. But as the platform scale, brands also have more dynamic requirements that you have to have the audience behavior be a signal for. So there are multitude of signals that combine to form a audience behavior, right? And those first party behavior data touch points, how well do you analyze and utilize that? It becomes a key to the success of the overall monetization or retail media engagement success, right? So once the platforms like Osmos came into picture, the whole structure would change, whether it is campaign setup or the inventory management or uh, the overall governance. All these factors became much more consistent, right? Um, there was predictability and repeat behavior in client engagements also, which made, if we recall our earlier point, which made it a stable revenue stream as well, right? So those individual campaigns translating into full year engagement, etc., on stable revenue patterns became made retail media much more realizable, uh, much more in demand engagement within the retail platforms, right? And there they started valuing the specifics. Key, this particular channel has uh, some green shoots. Why not build a plant over it, right? So that's the analogy that came through. It did not become just a collection of some deals. It became a overall revenue channel for us.
Very interesting. And I'm so glad that you are now doing all of this at TrueMeds again. Uh, what does it look like? Is it like been there, done that for the second time around? Or in this space, every year is a new year. Every year is a fresh new start. Of course, you build in a lot of learnings of historical years, but all that is surrounding the retail media. Is this a fresh start at TrueMeds, or do you carry forward something from your legacy years as well?
So fundamentals, the learning curve gets shortened, obviously. But having said that, with the AI and the evolution of agentic models, generative models, obviously more and more perspectives are being added. Uh, as we speak, what was relevant, say, 6 months back, um, may
Yeah.
not be relevant today, right? We realized it on various models of Claude, Gemini, GPT being launched, um, getting so much more faster, getting so much more agentic in nature. It just shows that. retail media also has to keep up with the pace,
Yes.
evolve faster, deliver better, and obviously rebuilding will not be a scratch momentum. It will be taking the learning and putting the cherry on the top with these newer initiatives that we are seeing in the surroundings, so that the client experience remains the same uh, or better, and they evolve and we evolve in a natural progression way as the world is moving to.
Very interesting insight. This is great, Prateek. Um, I think that brings me to next few questions on that. Now that you are now on a far larger role at TrueMeds, building this from scratch, and this must be early days. But what we've noticed that retail media has been very aspirational for a lot of senior leaders in most organization. Having said that, there's a big difference between that we made some money on ads and this is now a forecastable board level revenue line item. And I'm very proud and I'm very humbled to say that you have been a part of the latter because you have actually built a very sustainable and a forecastable revenue line item in one of India's largest healthcare platform. But having built all of this, what are the operational and the commercial signals you look out for to tell you that the program has crossed from experimentation to a full scale institutionalization of the program?
I think I'll touch upon some points that I already mentioned. From a bunch of deals to a stable revenue stream, the first signal that comes to your mind is forecastability, right? So you start understanding that this is my business, this is the value that it is creating, and this is uh, uh, revenue stream that I can present to the board and everyone else as well, right? That's when you have that understanding that the system is maturing. The second signal comes across is when the brands have a repeat brand participation, because it's a pseudo indicator for their trust, uh, for their understanding that this program is working out for them. Uh, it's a NPS equivalent signal uh, for us as retail media platforms, that we see repeat brand participation and consistent brand participation in our programs that we consistently try to deliver. And it signals also beyond the numbers and beyond the maturity of the platform. It also signals the uh, credibility of the overall ecosystem of that particular retail platform. The third is the internal alignment. Uh, Once these two start happening, you also see much more larger momentum that comes across product, marketing, category. Everyone start operating in tandem instead of in silos to make this program a success for our participating brands. So, and this whole engagement, while at scale, brings an operational ease, right? So it's a very specific signal that as you scale, you're not breaking things, you're not doing that maturing factor across, right? It's the operationally streamlining that you see, that uh, more number of participating brands does not mean more human resources at the back of it. It just is the fundamental understanding that same resources, same value can deliver far better outcome when engaged with a operational this thing, and that signals the overall maturity of the platform.
Okay. You made a very interesting point that retail media is not just about is not just about ad sales, is not just about ad sales and its broader team, but it's also about convincing or taking into account your stakeholders, including product, category, marketing, etc., etc. Can you think of any one occasion, Prateek, where you worked very closely with any of your stakeholders for a moment, which kind of is something that you can recall from your early days?
I think there were a few instances, uh, but I'll tell you. So we had a very specific brand request where there was a requirement, and this is early days of Osmos, where there was a requirement that how can we look at certain audience profiles which have visited the brand, uh, have visited the platform, have shown interest by, say, adding to cart or something, but have never transacted at either, right? And can we create and curate a program that just shows those indulgences um, across 360? It should not just be on the platform, it should be off platform, on platform, everything. So it required multiple coordinations. I think it required coordination with marketing, identifying and curating that cohort of audience, looking at uh, Osmos to dynamically engage on the on-platform activities, engaging in the CRM journeys to better build the drip campaigns for the individual cohort users, and then the fundamental analysis and repeats of these initiatives uh, made how much of a new to brand can I contribute, how much of those are first to the platform consumers, and what does the overall value did it bring through to the platform, to the brand, and to the overall ecosystem, right? So a lot of such initiatives uh, kind of helped us gain more experience in terms of what we can do today, uh, and helped us, like, say, today TrueMeds has an excellent recommendation engine. How can we build on top of that to assess a retail media side of it, right? So what can be done in that? All those experiments can be now construed because we have lived through that experience in some way or the other.
Very interesting. I think having been a custodian in the healthcare industry in India, I think these experiences, I would love to personally love hear these experiences throughout the day and learn a lot more in terms of how it actually how you actually went about it. But for a lot of retailers who are listening to this podcast, we see like globally a lot of new retailers coming and seeing retail media as a big potential revenue stream in their P&L. But somebody who is just beginning their journey of retail media, or a temptation is to sell the inventory quickly. If you are advising a healthcare retailer starting retail media in the next 90 days, Prateek, what should you prioritize? What would be your recommendation on prioritization? And if you could give a few whys along with that, would be helpful for our listeners too.
I think I'd say don't rush into monetization. Build a stable platform, build the understanding that would survive your initial wave, and there is of monetization, and there is a longevity attached to it, right? So you cannot sell your inventory before you have set the guardrails around it, right? You have to have your measurements, you have to have your guardrails. I'll tell you what can be the first 90 days that the individuals should look at. I think the first would be that your user trust should not be at erosion when you are monetizing. That is the most critical part. And along with that should be the regulatory compliance, because you absolutely have to respect the law of the land, and you have to understand what the regulatory compliance says much more deeply before you start into the advertising space. In healthcare, particularly, these boundaries matter a lot. Second would be to productize your inventory. Clearly define what kind of placements exist. Don't make ad hoc plans and ad hoc engagements. They do not give a repeatable brand or uh, get brand repeats because they do not guarantee success. What may work today may not work tomorrow for a different brand. So you have to productize your inventory, clearly articulate what am I looking at, and what is the expected outcome of this. Third should be to build the credible measurements early. If it, even if it is simple and but consistent, it gives a brand a lot more confidence that they can put their monies on, right? When these foundations exist, scaling, aification, everything else becomes much more easier and simpler. And without them, it can become very chaotic and lead to a degrowth very, very quickly. Should be avoided at all costs, especially in healthcare.
Interesting. I think what has stood out in this conversation, Prateek, is that I think retail media and healthcare doesn't become like a revenue line because just because a lot of brands exist and a lot of these brands are wanting to put in money, it becomes maybe a very mature platform when trust is protected because that is what consumers care for in healthcare. The operating model kind of become matures and the organization builds a lot of discipline around it, which is something I can truly resonate having worked with you. But Prateek, thank you so much for sharing both the practical as well as the human side of this journey. And to everyone listening, if retail media still feels experimental, the next unlock isn't more campaigns. It's a better structure to your monetization journey. Thank you so much, Prateek, for having spent time with us today. It was
Thank you.
truly, truly wonderful to have you because you're not just a customer to Osmos, but you are more a friend to us, having not just shaped our campaigns or nothing anything else, but a big ownership of how our product has shaped up also belongs to you.
And
So
we worked as partners, and the journey only continues. Osmos at Tata 1MG, Osmos at TrueMeds, have worked as partners, and that's how the relation should be. I think uh, it's upon us as a mutual stakeholders to build what is right for the retail media ecosystem and give our clients, our advertisers, the buck for the money. I think that's that's where the clear ownership lies, and working with Osmos as a partner has been a delight, to say the least. Thank you, Anuj.
appreciate this. Thank you for your kind words, Prateek. Really appreciate this and looking forward to working
Sure.
uh, closely with you. Thank you.
Thank you.